The Little Prince is a famous children's story from 1943, presents a fantastic tour of the galaxy. Opera plots are often complex and many heroes die. In this case, nobody dies, but I do have to admit the plot made no sense to me. This is Dr. David D. Shine, and welcome to a special edition of Starstruck as we keep our audience up to date on the arts, entertainment, and theater scene. The Little Prince is a famous children's story from 1943, presents a fantastic tour of the galaxy. Story was converted to an opera with music by Rachel Portman and English libretto by Nicholas Wright. Ironically, the opera had its first performance right here in Houston in 2003 by the Houston Grand Opera. Houston is a small opera company, Opera in the Heights, also known as O. This makes opera more accessible to a broad audience and gives some up-and-coming talent a chance to perform professionally. Opera plots are often complex and many heroes die. In this case, nobody dies, but I do have to admit the plot made no sense to me. The idea is that on a planet far away, there is a little prince. For some reason, he travels around, including various planets, and encounters a pilot. He eventually makes it to Earth and then somehow magically ends up back on his home planet, but is much wiser. The centerpiece of the opera is the Little Prince himself. For opening night, the part is sung by treble Daniel Karash, age 12. He is on stage for much of the production and commands attention with a calm demeanor and his unique voice. Paired with him is the pilot, sung by baritone Scott Clark on opening night. He is also on stage for much of the production and has a pleasant full baritone. As the prince and the pilot travel to various locations, they meet fascinating characters. There are too many in the large cast to mention, but I wanted to salute soprano Laura Karina Sanders as the water, soprano Caitlin Stavanoa as the rose, and mezzo-soprano Melanie Ashkar as the fox. Each performed their parts flawlessly and added to the enjoyment of the performance. My regular listeners know that I often point out a show stealer. This production was no exception. Tenor Aman Atkins performs 4 different roles, most notably the Vain Man and the Snake. As I mentioned in other operas reviews, the best not only are fantastic singers, but they pair it with great acting. That was certainly true of the enthusiastic character portrayals by Atkins. This production was accompanied by the Small Heights Opera Orchestra under the direction of Iki Isomura. Despite the small space and limited size, Isomura brings out the best of this operatic composition. I also want to credit stage director Josh Shaw, who helped the cast creatively bring the production to life in this small theater space. Opera in the Heights is facing some challenges financially. I encourage those who have an interest to patronize their productions and, if possible, make a contribution or volunteer to help. Disclaimer: I buy my own tickets to performances covered, do not identify myself to the theater as a reviewer, and do not promise to do a review. Dr. Dave awards Opera in the Heights 5 stars for its production of The Little Prince. If you've enjoyed this review, please subscribe on your favorite platform.